Judy. Call this meeting to order. First up is the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome to our visitors. We'll do roll call.
Clark? Fish? Hausman? Jones? Parsons? Wakefield? Mayor Beasley?
Here. Before we approve the agenda, I'd like to pass on a longtime city employee, Judy Brasso, passed away Saturday. She ran the golf course for 25, 30 years, and then was an employee once we hired that. So, yeah, her funeral was Saturday, will be this Saturday, so. Approval of the agenda tonight.
Mayor, if I could, I'd like to remove 10G. Second.
A motion from Jones, second from Parsons to approve the amended agenda. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes. We had a May 31st briefing, a June 4th special, and a June 4th regular council meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mayor.
I have a motion from Hausman, second from Clark, to approve the minutes of those three meetings. Discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, moving on. Approval of claims for June 18th. I have a motion from Jones, second from Hausman, to approve the claims for June 18th. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 6, we have nothing on the visitors and timed items, but this would be the time if you needed to address the council. You have 5 minutes. All right, we will move on to committee reports. Golf course committee.
I don't have any updates.
Okay, how about item 8, the police report is in front of us.
We like it just the way it is, Mayor, so it's quiet.
All right, thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to share real quick. I went for a police ride-along Friday night for a little over 5 hours. And is Chief here?
Yes.
Yeah. Super awesome experience. Officers were fantastic, just beyond impressive at what they're able to do. Their ability to multitask. They're so talented, knowledgeable, and really brave. I mean, they don't maybe feel like they are, but they have zero clue what they're coming across. And I witnessed that firsthand when we pulled people over or they had a call dispatched to them. It was beyond impressive. And they speak extremely high of Chief Dave and the sergeants and the operation in general. It was really neat to see that. So I wanted to just share that and say thank you for allowing that to happen. They actually allowed Adam to do a ride-along as well. So, quick question on the police. When I was doing the ride-along, a conversation came up about distracted driving and texting, and I learned that we don't currently have an ordinance for the officers to be able to pull somebody over that is texting, and I just was curious if that's something we wanted to discuss.
That's actually a question that's come up before when Sioux Falls and some of the other municipalities around the state got on board with the anti-texting laws. When we say that we don't have anything that we can rely on, there is careless driving, and that's when you're distracted. It's basically distracted driving and covers a lot of things. So if a vehicle's moving down the street and swerving from side to side, and you can see their head down and they're doing something with their device, that is an option that officers can exercise. One of the problems that I've seen with the texting laws that come in is you see someone pull their phone out and they're looking at it and they're going like this and they're doing that. You pull them over and they say, yeah, I was just pulling up a phone call I had to make to my wife to tell her I'm on my way home. That's not texting, that's using your phone. And, you know, and if they're doing it in a manner, quite frankly, where they're not in control of their vehicle or they're not aware of their surroundings, that in itself could still be a careless driving, you know, allowing yourself to be distracted by the device in your hand. So that was a discussion back in those days on what's available and what's not available. And careless driving is still is available, always has been, and is probably reaches a broader spectrum of activity inside that car. Leaning over and kissing your spouse or something like that, just careless driving.
Thank you, Chief, because I had brought this to our attention, gosh, was it 4 or 5 years ago, when that texting and, you know, texting accident happened in Sioux Falls, and I knew some of the parties involved. So remember when I brought that up to our attention, that is what you told us, is because of the distracted driving and the careless driving, and that's why. But they still are able to pull people over, like he said, if they see that they are being distracted, so.
Thanks, Chief. Anything else, please? All right, Park and Rec. We have the maintenance work report. And then we also have a pay app, number 9, for Aspen Park concession / restroom building.
I would make a motion to approve that pay app, thinking it's the last one. Pretty close, yeah. And if you haven't been down to see the facility, please go on down and see it.
I have a motion from Fish, second by Jones, to approve pay app number 9 for the Aspen Park concession restroom building. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. We have some staff at the pool that will have some adjustments made because they passed a course.
Correct. Lauren Newstead and Sarah McKellar have completed their WSI course, so we usually grant a $1 an hour wage increase for those employees that hold the WSI certification.
So I would make that motion here.
Second.
A motion from Fish, second from Hausman, to approve that $1 raise to those two young ladies for completing their water safety instructor course. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The next item, we have a request from the Buddhist Society of South Dakota to use McCarty Park on July 1st from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. with a total of around 50 to 70 people, with some bounce houses and food and water, and then they want to use a speaker system and a microphone.
Second.
A motion from Jones, second from Parsons, to approve the request from the Buddhist Society of South Dakota. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 10, we have a tax abatement request on Lot 11, Block 2, Stone Ridge Estates. A motion from Wakefield, second from Hausman, to approve this tax abatement request. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? All right, item 10B. Bethany Meadows would like to have a fireworks display on Thursday, July 5th at dusk with low, or Class C, low explosives.
We talk about this every year, and they do a great job, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion from Hausman, second by Wakefield to approve the Bethany Meadows request for fireworks. Questions or discussion?
Can we get just a little clarity on what Class C fireworks are?
Common fireworks available for sale and by use by the general public is what they are. DJ, could you elaborate a little bit more? Our resident fireworks.
TJ Cameron, 2417 Lopez Lane. Class C are the consumer fireworks that you can buy from the 27th through the 5th. Some aerial stuff, artillery shells and such, but it's not the like 5 or 6 inch shelf. Those are commonly known as Class B, and those require like a professional to shoot them, professional storage, but it's a consumer firework. It's the same thing that we allow to be shot on the 3rd and 4th within the city limits now. Same type of firework.
Thanks, buddy.
No problem.
All right, so I had a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item C, racetrack support discussion.
We did discuss this pretty much in detail on Thursday, so I'll just get kind of a 5,000-foot overview. We know, and certainly those in the audience know, that you know, there's been discussion around the racetrack about putting that property up for sale and actually auctioning that property. And there's been some question with the county as far as the ordinances apply down there. So, you know, I think in that discussion, Tim, and tell me if I'm wrong, we've decided to kind of course, we support that track being there. I mean, it is a cornerstone to what the city of Brandon is, and there isn't any of us that want to see it go away. But there are a lot of steps that have to be taken outside of the city for us to actually put our 2 cents worth in. But the support is there. Tim wanted to bring the discussion forward, and I thank you for doing that. But the support certainly is there. I think it's just a matter of us sitting back, seeing how things play out, and going from there.
And really the reason for it being on the agenda, a couple of residents had reached out to me and asked, you know, what the city's stance was and so forth. And I think, Blaine, you said it perfectly. The support is there. In our case, you know, it means a lot to have that track here and running. It brings a lot of new people into our community every time there's a race, and some people that are returning to the track to see more races. So just wanted to make sure that if there was residents that had any questions or concerns or anything like that, they had an opportunity to say so. But overwhelmingly, the support is there, especially from the residents as well. So.
Anything else on racetrack? Item D, council committee changes.
And I have the list over in my office.
Yeah, I got one.
If I remember right, Chuck and Barb volunteered for finance first. Joe volunteered for personnel, and then capital projects, and then finance last.
These are our finance.
Dana volunteered for personnel. Yep, but that was first choice, so.
We have to go on capital projects, it's kind of now, so but I figured if it's.
All right.
So you're gonna let us know on the next meeting?
Yep.
Excellent.
Just for clarity, Brian, these are in addition to the current assignments, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, just for what it's worth, I'll fall wherever I need to fall.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right.
That would be capital.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Next item is online banking and ACH update agreements with First National.
First National is changing their computer system, so we've got a couple of new agreements with them for our ACH, or automatic payment, for utility bills.
So,
Need to approve it?
Yep.
I make the
They're
motion.
contracts.
Hey, I'm doing finance.
so will this affect the online people?
No.
Will they have to make changes?
Nope.
Okay,
Stay out of mine.
okay. So I had a motion from Fish, second from Hausman, to approve these online banking and ACH update agreements with First National. Questions or discussion?
Is there any changes to expense or anything like that? The fees are still the same
No,
rate?
yeah, fees will stay the same.
Okay, thank you.
With that being said, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Item F, Dakota Resources Strategic Plan.
I have the two gentlemen this evening that you all asked to meet, so I'll let them introduce themselves, and if we have any questions for them, we can do so.
If
Aye.
you push the purple button. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us. My name is Joe Bartman. I'm the president of Dakota Resources, a nonprofit based in Renner, South Dakota, just down the road.
And I'm John Baronic. I'm one of the community coaches that works for Dakota Resources.
So we understand that Chuck has explained to you a bit about what we do, so I don't want to be repetitive, so maybe we'll just start out with your questions. And you know, we're a nonprofit, as I mentioned. We work with communities and leaders who want to empower their communities to think about their future together and create that future that they want together. We're excited. We understand that the Chamber and the development, economic development and school are also on board as partners in this work. And so with that, I don't want to dull you with stuff you've already heard. So welcome your questions.
So, you know, we want to hear from all of our citizens. So what's the process to get our residents involved? So it's not just us.
Right, great question. So that's really what we do. Okay, John's going to hand you there's 4 sketches. We may have enough, but I'm not sure we have enough for everybody.
Thank you.
I want to just direct your attention to the one in the top left, which shows really the overall process that we use when we engage a community. In other words, helping you to bring more voices into the conversation and more hands into the work to make things happen. We start out by a process that we consider a divergent process. In other words, we're gathering up all the ideas and questions and concerns that people have first, and we work on that. It's sort of like pushing a ball up a hill. It takes a while, and that's the hard part, getting up the hill, and that's inviting. And so what we do, and actually what John will do as the lead coach here, is to guide a core team that would form, that would represent all 4 of those groups, plus other folks from the community who are interested in leading that, to engage people in a lot of different ways, in one-on-one conversations, in small group conversations, in large group conversations, over the course of several months. And really widening the scope and the perspectives in the community, and leading up to a big, what we call a community gathering, which is a big bang kind of meeting in the community where we really work hard to genuinely invite everyone who's interested in thinking about the future of Brandon together. And we come out of that meeting with some teams that have formed. And that's about when the ball is getting close to the top of that hill, right? And those teams form around the different topics. We don't go in there with preconceived notions about what those might be that people will care about. And we organize into those groups. People have an opportunity to join. Anybody has an opportunity to join those groups. We're going to look at some issues in the community and some ideas in the community more deeply and seek to understand them, understand how they relate to each other, understand what they really mean in the context of Brandon, which is different from any other community in the world in some ways, and a lot like other communities in other ways. And so we also plug you and those teams into other communities and other teams that are working on the same kinds of things so you can learn from each other and with each other. At different points along the way, those teams are going to reach the top of the hill and figure out how to solve whatever that problem was or how to make that idea happen, and then we start rolling that ball downhill in a quick way. What we call taking little bets. In other words, we try to help those teams to think about what can they try and keep trying so that we're building momentum and not just biting off more than we can chew right off the front end and making it costly mistakes. We also have worked with the Chamber Board and the Development Corp Board here in Brandon separately and then together in some strategic planning work. And so part of what we do is to think about how we're organizing and inviting people to be involved, but at the same time trying to be strategic and be working toward a common vision or a set of common visions in the community. So this is a process that we call Empower. So you can call it whatever the heck you want to here in Brandon, but internally we call it our Empower community coaching process. It typically is at least a 2-year process. What we like to do is commit to 12 months at a time with the community. So if you wanted to commit for more than 12, that's good with us, but we want to give you a chance to make sure that we're a good fit. And then we continue to work. Some communities we work with over the course of many years. Some communities we only work with for a year, and it really depends. We're excited here because not only have we done work with 2 important organizations already in Brandon, but we've also done some work with Minnehaha County Economic Development Association over the last few years. And the good thing, we're going to put my colleague John in the lead, but we have a whole team of coaches. So he can call on any of us to come in when our expertise is needed or when he needs a hand with some things. And John has been involved with the work we've done with Makita and the work we've done with the Development Corp and the Chamber here. So he knows this community well already and lives right in Sioux Falls, so he's always close by. That was a really long answer. Did I answer your question? And then some? Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I for one want to say thank you. And I certainly want to thank you, Chuck, for bringing these folks to us, because I think this is a wonderful chance for the city of Brandon to do some really monumental things for our community. And forward thinking, we could use some of that.
Great.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I want to say about that, just to be really crystal clear, and this is something I say to every community when I'm standing in this spot, and that is, we don't bring the answers. We don't bring a magic wand that's going to solve your community problems. We believe that the answers and the solutions you need already live here. And so what we do is help you to pull some of those ideas and questions and voices out of the corners of your community and the edges of your community who sometimes haven't been involved in the past. That's really what we're best at. If you've ever seen John in action, he's a pretty dynamic facilitator of those conversations. So that's really our role in all of this.
When it comes to getting the community engaged, what tools are you using to try and drive residents to become active?
Sure. One of the things that we've found over the years is that we certainly can't expect people to show up just because we want them to, or just because we've said they're invited. There's a whole lot of people in most communities who feel, even if this council or the chamber or anybody were to say, hey, everybody's welcome, your voice matters, that's a tough sell. Some people have, for whatever number of reasons, don't feel like their voice really does matter, or like they really are totally welcome at that table. So the tools that we use are mostly about unlearning some of the things that you might think you already know about engaging your community. And we really want to help you to meet people wherever they are, instead of expecting them to respond to whatever typical ways you've tried to reach them in the past. We want to really think about the community in specific slices and segments, and what's the best way to actually make that slice of the community feel like this is their process, and what's the way to make that slice of the community see that this is for them. And so we're really going to slice that up and help you reach people wherever they are, where they're coming from in the community. And that means for leaders like you really have to be willing to let go of whatever ideas you have about how things should go, because now you're members of the community just like everybody else, but in this kind of a process, your ideas are equal to everybody else's, and they're not more valuable or more important. And so it's really about something, kind of spreading some of that power and authority about deciding what's important around in the community, and not making a list of things for somebody else to do.
Can I give you an example?
Yeah, please.
So maybe to give you one example, and we're working in the community of Canton, and I remember we called them initiative teams there, the individuals stepped up and wanted to do something. And there was a group there was an individual who works for a large healthcare system here, and some land was being figured out, and they thought that they wanted a baseball field. And when they came to the first meeting, they had the designs of what they wanted, everything in place for it. And I asked them some pretty tough questions about, how do you know this is what the community wants, and what is it that they're really looking for? Who have you talked to before you make this decision, before you decide this is what it is? And they kind of set them back on their heels, and they went back and started asking questions of the community and figuring out. One of the things they figured out is that kids that get in the summer rec program, 50% of them don't finish who start the summer rec program. And so we said, let's find out why. And what they started to figure out was there weren't enough volunteers, or there weren't enough parent umpires, and the kids were bored with some of the activities in that. And so this group that had literally a gigantic plan up said, hey, maybe we need to figure out why more parents aren't being umpires, and how can we get more people doing it. And the truth is, they figured out what we're gonna work on this year is we're gonna improve the summer rec program. And they have 3 times the number of kids that are involved in the program this summer, and they've got it all mapped out, and they got volunteers lined up, and they got parents that will be umpires. And to me, they're having a bigger impact on their community this year than if they tried to dig ground to put that plan up on the wall about the baseball field that nobody's really necessarily ready for yet. So I think that's part of what we do, is we ask tough questions of people, and we also probably have meetings that aren't like this. It isn't people up front making the decisions for the people that are sitting out here. We're going to have a lot of conversations out here that eventually come to you and talk about, here's what we'd like to see for the community of Brandon.
We might even sit in a circle, right, Chuck? Any other questions?
Yeah, how many people are usually in like your group, or do you have different groups, or how does that all entail?
Well, so it starts out with a core team, which is, again, a term that we use. You can call it whatever you want, and communities call that team different things. But that team, we want to be pretty diverse in terms of the different organizations that are represented, the different slices of the community that are represented. That team can be anywhere from 5 to 12 people, typically. Some communities have had larger than 12, and if they go the divide and conquer route, that can sometimes work. And we've had communities that have done just fine with 5. The role of that core team is not to be in charge, it's to convene. It's to organize events and conversations, and to continue inviting people and gathering up the data that we're collecting over the course of those months about what the community cares about.
But then there's probably a more important number. I just using Canton because that's the community I'm currently working in. How many would you say showed up at the community gathering?
100 and
Oh, there was more than that.
Yeah, I mean, it was close to 200, maybe
I
more than
mean,
200.
I think there was more than 200, and nobody believed that many people would show up for it. And so a little bit is, all these little conversations, people get curious what other people are having in their conversation, and we keep saying, yeah, come to the community gathering, we're going to tell you what everybody has said, and it starts to build a little bit of energy around that. And I think maybe we break through some of those old, well, we've tried that before, or nobody ever wants to do anything, nobody wants to contribute, no one wants to step up, and this proves that that's not true. And one of the things that I like to do too is I like to get kids involved, and so that we have kids who are the future people that might stay in Brandon to be engaged, and we're giving them a leadership opportunity to be involved in this as well. So I hope that you'll also think when we talk about diverse, we're also going to be talking about how do we get kids involved in this as well so that they get part of saying what they'd like to have in their community.
And I would just add real quickly, I hesitate sometimes to say a number about how many showed up in another community, because there's not a right number. And one of the things that we believe really deeply is we work really hard with you to help you invite in a genuine way to your whole community, and then whoever shows up are the right people, because they're the people who care about the future of Brandon. So that might be 20 or it might be 200, but it's the people who care and want to get involved.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So one last question. So when it comes to budgeting, obviously the package is what it is, but what other incidental cost would you prepare for when budgeting when it comes to having these meetings, or what are other communities doing to, I'm not going to use the word entice, oh yeah, I am, entice people to come visit. Is there things that we should be budgeting for?
Well, one important thing is food. We've found over the years that that's a great way to get a better turnout, is to feed people. So yes, you do want to set aside some additional funding locally. For us, it's that fee plus mileage, which is very little here in this case. But you're going to want to, I don't know if you'll have to rent any facilities or if you have those available, but with the partners you have, maybe you have some facilities available that you won't have to pay for. You'll want to do some promotion. So most of that promotion won't cost you much, but it depends. Some communities really go all out in their promotional materials and print really nice flyers that they hand door to door, or that they insert in utility bills or something like that, or do some advertising in local media. Those are decisions that core group will have to make along the way, and they'll have to ask for budget for from this entity, I assume, and the others. Other things to think about is, a meal. We typically suggest having that big gathering about 4 to 6 months into the beginning of the process, and that's where a community will typically provide a meal. And then about 6 to 8 months after that, we would typically have you do another one so that people can hear about what's going on from those teams and what progress is being made. It's then a pattern. The communities that are good at this get into a pattern where they're doing that every year, with or without us, right? Even if they don't work with us anymore, they're still having a big community gathering once a year to say, here's what our community's been working on, what do we want to do next, and get in that habit.
Any other questions for these gentlemen? Yeah,
Thank you for considering it. We're
Yes,
excited.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye-bye.
Anything else, administration?
I don't think so, Mayor. Thank you.
Just an update, we received 5 applications for the city engineer position. 4 of those were qualified, or met our qualifications. Julie Nelson, our HR consultant, has conducted phone, I don't want to call them interviews because they weren't that in-depth over the last week, so we'll start scheduling interviews probably next week for the 4 candidates that we will be looking at.
So question on the strategic plan, do we need a motion to move forward, or?
What we can do is I'll get a hold of Dakota Resources and get a draft contract and put that on the next council agenda.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, moving on. Yes.
So with the engineer position, what's the process on that for the interviews, keeping council up to date on qualifications, that kind of stuff when it comes decision time?
Typically, what we'll do with the personnel committee, we'll invite you in when we get those interviews scheduled. You're more than welcome to sit in on those, ask questions if you want to. As we move forward into the process, depending on how many candidates we're really happy with, we may offer a second interview. If there's one that's an outstanding candidate, we may just proceed with a conditional job offer, at which time we will certainly give the council all the information in their resume, their letter of intent, everything else.
All right. Street committee, you see the work report in front of us? And we have review curb and gutter repair bids. Yeah, that's a picture of the new truck that we bought.
That was
we can
a
afford.
classic one. I used to drive that 25 years ago, so. Synchro mesh transmission. Yeah, I would recommend that we accept the base bid and the alternate bid from DD Construction for our curb and gutter repairs for our slurry seal, 2018 slurry seal project. According to the cost estimate that I did, it was pretty close. I came up with about 31,000 and they got 34,000 for the total, so. The other one was a little bit higher, 42.
I'll make a motion to accept that.
I have a motion from Jones, second from Clark to accept the curb and gutter repair bid from DD Concrete at $34,227. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next item up for bid, or for discussion, we have a truck from Northern Truck.
Yeah, we're looking at buying a new dump truck for the street department, putting a plow and sander on it. Right now, the NJPA budget number was $142,903, which I had budgeted $150,000 for the truck and everything. So I'd like the council to approve the truck part so we can get going on that and try and get it before the end of the year here. So.
A motion from Hausman, second from Clark to approve. Questions or discussion?
Did you know what kind of lead time you were looking at on that, Raleigh? It's getting pretty tight for snow year, or?
We may not have it the first snow, but they predicted we'll have it probably by September, October. That's not a guarantee, but there's some issues with the actual motor for the truck. They quit building it for a while, so.
Yeah, so.
Just saying.
Just-
Giving you the benefit of the doubt, saying November.
Well, I was hoping to have it by September, October, but the way they're kind of leaning, it may be November, but.
Okay, very good, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, moving on. Maple/Park Corridor Study.
John's got a handout for you. There's a request for a map. Minnehaha County invited us to, if we were interested in taking part in a corridor study for Maple Park Street in the city of
Thanks,
Brandon,
Mr. Brown.
Maple out in the county, stretching from Highway 100 to Highway 11. We met with them. They're currently scoping out that process, looking at various funding sources that they would like to tap into, and some of those require selection process, and some of them don't. But the county's moving forward with some type of a study on Maple.
Okay. Obviously, Park Street is ours.
Correct.
And it's already paved.
Correct. What we'd be looking at would be,
Yeah, from
Yeah, it would be Park Street from Sioux East to Highway 11.
Yeah, the other part
Correct.
connecting with Split Rock Boulevard is not.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you guys will recall, back in about 2013, we had talked about a joint venture with Split Rock Township, Minnehaha County, and the city of Brandon cooperating together in a similar study. This has been expanded from that. It appears that from 6 Mile Road over to Highway 11 has been added to it, as well as the planning portion inside the city limits of Brandon. Because originally, we were looking at from basically the Big Sioux River west to 6 Mile Road, because we have a lot of traffic from Brandon traveling that way, so that gravel road gets a lot of pounding. And so, you know, that was what we had looked at in 2013, and we had, at that time, we did not get a successful cooperation between the three parties to move forward with a planning document. And we've also included, we had also sent a proposal to Brian back in April to just look at a small piece of Park Street from just basically Sioux Boulevard east to Split Rock, Split Rock Boulevard, since there's a potential for development there, so. But this is the document. I was not able to talk to DJ directly today, so I talked to Shannon Schultz, who is with the kind of underneath DJ Boothie over at Minnehaha County. And I'm still gonna have some more conversation with DJ to get some more information. I really don't have all the information at this point. And so we're gonna try to compile everything so we have a better understanding of that for you to talk about.
Thanks for doing that little bit of research. I know I've had the opportunity to talk to a few people about this. Paul Sano and I talked about it. There's definitely a city portion of it, especially coming east and looking how we're going to connect to Split Rock Boulevard. You know, when it comes down to it, the county and the state aren't going to want more connection points to Split Rock Boulevard. It's going to get to a point where we look to try and connect our Aspen Park to Split Rock as well. So I'd like to see us continue to be supportive of this with the county, and if we can be kept in the loop on if there's, as we do this cooperative agreement, when that cost starts coming towards our way and what that percentage is, it'd be great. But at this point, I think it's a good effort and something that the residents would really appreciate, so.
Anything else on Park/Maple? All right. We have some staffing needs to take care of.
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to hire Keenan Bastian as a part-time employee. The other gentleman asked if we could hold off till the next meeting. He'd make his final decision on another job, so. And then we'd hire him for $10.15 an hour. First year, either one of those would ever worked here, so.
I'll make a motion, we approve Keenan.
A motion from Clark, second by Parsons, to approve the hiring of Keenan Bastian to work in the street department. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thanks, Raleigh.
Anything else, streets? Ms. Clark, anything else in streets? No. Thank you. Water and sewer, Sukup Construction, pay app number 8, biosolid removal and cell regrading.
Latest pay app is an amount of $117,641.98 for work completed to date. They've still got basically all the dirt's been moved. We're still waiting for seeding activity to take place.
This is a partial pay request, as Brian indicated, and we'd recommend authorization for payment. The topsoil's been placed since then. It's actually looking really good, like I had mentioned at the briefing meeting, moving along great. And I think, you know, within the next month, most of that work should be completed. Keep in mind, they have a maintenance program we have built into this project where they maintain the seed for up to a year after this. So this fall, we'll be hitting them up, you know, to overseed any areas it didn't take, so that we can make sure we get a good stand of grass in that area so that we don't have a lot of erosion and stuff, so.
John, does that get hydroseeded how do they seed?
No, we, anytime we can, we try to direct seed it. So a drill, you know, anytime you have, you know, soil to seed contact is the best approach for growth of seed. Hydro seed is good in, I guess, in residential areas, but anytime we can, if we can get a seeder in there, we want to do that, so.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion from Wakefield, second from Jones, to approve pay app number 8 for biosolid removal and cell regrading to Sukup Construction. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed. Item B, 2017 Brandon Water Infrastructure Plan.
The 2017 update is completed. Just a discussion as to when, if or when the council would like to have that presentation made.
My recommendation is yesterday, as soon as possible.
I took the time to review the plan. I 100% agree. There's a lot of information in here that is very pertinent to our current situation. When it comes to where we're at with water, I think there's been quite a few things that hiccups we've had. And in this report, it very specifically calls out that we should be looking at making a connection to rural water as soon as possible, and I'd like to see that happen. With that said, if we're not able to maintain or get a long-term connection, it does also specifically say that we should be looking to make an emergency connection. So there's a lot of pieces to this and other information that can help guide us along the way. And I think it's important that this information makes it to AE2S, who is also helping us on the sources side. Mainly because when you look at this study, it's encompassing of our entire system, not necessarily just the sources. In this information, it talks about different methods of treatment, which could impact the sources that we go after. It also talks about some of our looping that we're definitely going to want to be looking towards as soon as possible. That could be projects that we would be bidding out next spring. Redwood Boulevard is a good example of that in the looping. The other thing that I wanted to bring to the attention of the council is it specifically states that we don't need to do both towers immediately. I think that's something that hasn't made it to our ears, and it's something that gives us an opportunity to look at how we cash flow the water improvement projects. And it specifically recommends that we start with the west side water tower. And what that'll do is it'll buy us time and funding so that we can look at the rest of the projects. In essence, when you look at everything that's in this package, we're talking millions of dollars. And if you try to do that immediately, which honestly is recommended, when you all get a chance to read this, you'll find out that everything in here is recommended. We're behind the 8 ball. There's things here that we should have done 10 years ago, most likely. But we're here where we are today, and we need to be frugal with the money and pay attention to how we're spending that money. So with that said, I'd like to see this presentation as soon as possible and get it in front of the people that can, make decisions and move forward. I'd like to thank Stockwell for taking the effort to do this and get this information to us. So.
Raleigh, what's our usage been the last few days?
about the past week or so here, we've been bumping right around that 1.1, 1.2. I believe it was yesterday or day before, we actually jumped up to 1.56. So it's been maintaining about that 1.2 roughly.
All right. Thank you. Next item, water conservation discussion request. No, it's just a discuss.
Water Conservation Committee would like to put up 4 signs, message boards from Dick Pickering, one at each entrance to town, just reminding folks as they come into town that we have water and restrictions in place. And then they're also working on a postcard mailer that will go out to everybody in the city.
I think that's a really good idea, and I just want to plant the seed again, because we're going to be talking about budget here soon. I want to make sure that we're discussing those reader boards on the city signs again, and looking at a budget for those reader boards on there, so we can get some of this information out.
Is that expense for those coming out of that budget that we gave them?
It's not much cost. It can.
Yeah.
I think that was the intent, was that it would come out of the budget. That's what the Conservation Committee had asked, and so I think that makes sense. We gave them money, so, yeah, so sounds perfect.
Anything else? Water
I'll just
conservation.
add, Barb and I
Thank you.
attended that last meeting with the conservation, and I think some good things came out of it. We also collaborated on how else we can get the word out economically, AKA free. And we reached out to 14 or 15 churches and asked them to spread the word. I sent out a chamber e-blast, and I've had some of those come back to me through other sources, just passing on that information. So, I think the more we can over-educate, the better chance we have to stay ahead of this. So I also heard the amount that we were going to be charged for these signs, and he's given us a heck of a deal. So it's a win-win.
Very good. Redwood storm sewer bid.
We received 3 bids for the Redwood Storm Sewer Project. As you can see by the bid tabulation, it actually came in a little higher than our budget. Actually 4, sorry about that. 4, but 3 were competitive in that 260 to 280 range. Our budget, total budget, was $250,000 for this. We do believe that it's the bids that came in are on the high side simply because our bidding environment. We actually had another project that was bid in another community last week that we didn't get a single bidder on. And so it's a sign of, I think, these contractors are pretty busy. A lot of times the June bids are not a good time to be bidding things, or April or May or June. And so I guess with that, if it's important to you to move forward with this, we certainly feel we have competitive bids for this time of year. So we've recommended an authorization to move forward with it. However, if you would like to hold off, and this is what Brian and I talked about, is possibly holding off on this project, piggyback it with the water main looping project on Redwood that was planned for next year. Maybe do the 2 utility projects next year, and then, as you know, this Redwood and Sioux area, that kind of loop was planned for an overlay after that utility work is completed. So maybe the following year, then we do an overlay on that Redwood Boulevard. So, and those are some things we talked about, but going back to this project, we do feel they're a little strong, and it's due to the bidding environment. So open it up to your discussion for discussion if you'd like.
I had the opportunity to talk to John about this project as well, and I think it makes a lot of sense for us to try to tie this in with the looping project next year on Redwood.